Without further ado, very humble and grateful and honored to be speaking with a very amazing individual with an incredible past, Brian Miller of Clarity Up Consulting. ClarityUpConsulting.com, just like it sounds. The motto is just say the thing. And then further, what I like a lot is everything can be said clearly, and it must. And Brian's motto is we teach smart people how to explain their big ideas to the rest of us. And so this is a conversation to learn more about that for those of us that are always searching for those the next answer or the next idea or the next inspiration for the next idea. Brian, pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, Judd, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
How is business? What are the main things that are on your mind right now before we jump into it? And one of the things I found very intriguing, I have to bring up during this fantastic conversation is you used to be a magician.
Not only did I used to be, I was a full-time magician for 10 years. Yeah, that was my entire job. Yeah.
I have to ask about that.
We can talk about that.
No, I have to ask about it really quickly. What was that like? And then how did you transcend down to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I was around magic all my life. My dad, my grandfather, they were magic enthusiasts, magic lovers. They never did it professionally, but from my earliest memories, my dad was doing magic tricks for me and for my friends. He would come into my class and do magic for my class. At Thanksgiving every year, I was born in Buffalo, New York, but my entire family, multiple generations, were all from Long Island. And so we would travel back to Long Island every year around Thanksgiving and kind of combine Hanukkah with Thanksgiving. And even though it was totally different months. And this was in, early mid 90s. In there was this show on, I don't know, maybe NBC, that was the world's greatest magicians. And it was on every year around the week of Thanksgiving.
I think I remember that.
Remember that? Yeah.
I think so.
The TVs were like 12 inches. Remember? Like that was on TV. So me and my grandfather would sit with our noses up against this glowing, hot, heat emanating TV and watch magicians for hours. And then he and I would go off and he would help me learn a new card trick. And then after Thanksgiving dinner, I would stand up for my aunts, uncles, cousins, my dad, for everybody. And I would do a magic trick that he'd helped me learn for the whole family. So I was around magic all my life. And to everyone's great shock, upon graduating college, I turned down a PhD track offer because I wanted to do card tricks for a living.
Your parents must have been thrilled.
Yeah, it was a tough phone call home. As much as they had loved magic and supported it and enjoyed me doing it on the side and in restaurants and backyard barbecues when I was a teenager and even in college, I mean, I was doing all my papers for my philosophy and math degrees while I was, in hotel rooms traveling around upstate New York doing magic shows at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. I was always expected to go into academia, to follow the family into academia. My parents are computer scientists. I have doctors and mathematicians in the family.
Right.
And so deciding, no, I'm going to try this. I think I could do it. That like naivety, the arrogance of youth to think I could make it as a magician. It's like, thank God we're ignorant when we're young, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't do it.
Question for you. Well, I think it's good to have a certain amount of that type of, you call it ignorance or whatever it might be. One of my favorite quotes is from Jared Leto, which is pro vehito and altum. Just be willing to jump off the cliff. You don't know what it might be. And so the fact that even though you are highly intelligent, fast thinking, looking forward, etc., yet right in front of you it was, all right, the PhD thing, I'm going to do this. So what was it in those moments that made you want to go down that road instead of run down, because you knew the PhD, all of that would be there.
Yeah, that's it.
So you just wanted to give it a run.
It had been laid out my whole life. I knew what that path looked like, and not to be that guy, but like by luck of birth, I inherited the genes of just being smart enough.
Yeah.
I was a 4.0 student, and I won all the awards, and I presented as an undergrad. I did all the things. I knew I could do a PhD. Just not to say it wouldn't have been hard, but I knew I could do it. There was a clear path to that. And to be honest, I had a moment. I'm literally 20 years old. I was young, so I was 20 years old. Looking at 7 more years in the ivory tower. And you just go, I think I'm gonna try this crazy thing because almost nobody gets to be a magician. I'm already getting paid to do it part-time outside of school. Maybe I have a shot at it.
Yeah.
And I thought if it fails, my academic resume will never change. I can always go back.
If you fail, at least you tried.
Yeah, at least I tried. And I was really determined to find out. I just thought, I don't want to get to the end of my life and wonder if I could have made it as a magician.
Right.
And you actually mentioned that you said the Jared Leto quote. That it actually reminded me of Kurt Vonnegut quote.
It's Provejito and Altum. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And there's a Kurt Vonnegut quote that's, "We must leap off of cliffs and grow wings on the way down."
It's the same. It's the exact same
right?
thing. Yeah.
It's just this beautiful and in my high school yearbook, the quote that I put in my high school yearbook was, "Leap and the net will appear."
Yeah, that's a great. That's
so,
you actually put that. You put that in your.
In my high school yearbook, that was the quote that I put.
Yes, it's already. And that's the sign of an entrepreneur, is when it's those types of, we're wired differently, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just in you. And the greatest mistakes we could ever make is just to not even try. Just to not try.
Yeah.
So you did it for, what'd you say, 10 to 15 years?
Yes. Did we? Are we recording?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. I just didn't see a recording sign anywhere. So.
Yeah. No, this is how I do podcasts. We just have a beautiful conversation. And we'll dig into your business in a second. But some of the most important aspects.
I didn't see a recording sign on the Zoom call for a second.
But some of the most important components of these types of conversations is people getting to listen to someone like you that has done things like that. Because there are people later in life that can still try as entrepreneurs to do things that they always thought they wanted to, and they still have time left. So go for it.
Yeah.
You did it. I've lived my life that way too. But you did it, and you did it for a decent amount of time. You didn't do it for like 3 months. You actually did it.
Yeah, I actually made a deal with myself. I made a contract with myself when I decided to pursue magic. I said, you get 2 years. And my deal with myself was, you have to try it for 2 years, even if it's not working. You have to do 2 years. After 2 years, you can decide if you're going to go back to school. But for 2 years, you have to do it. And my main deal with myself was, you can't take a part-time job while you're trying. That was the big part. Now, privilege noted. I came from an upper middle class family. I would not have been starving, right? And there are people in the world, there are people in America, there are people around the world who simply cannot do that. So privilege noted, right? But I was determined that I was like, if I'm working a part-time gig at McDonald's, the only job I've ever had. I was 16. I worked at McDonald's for a year. Quit the day I realized I could make more money in an hour doing card tricks, and I was making a week over that hot stove.
Or mowing lawns.
Or mowing lawns, right? And again, nothing but respect for people who are mowing lawns.
Absolutely.
God bless people who are mowing lawns, because I don't want to do it. I'm thrilled to pay somebody to do it. But I gave myself 2 years to try to make it, and I really almost didn't. I actually, coming up on that 2-year mark, it really wasn't working. I was barely affording to feed myself.
So what was that moment that got you to keep going?
So I actually did reapply to grad schools at that point. I was ready to go back to school. I was ready to tuck my tail between my legs, tell my dad he was right. And right before I found out, this was the second time it happened, right before I found out, got a little lucky break. I had one or two local businesses book me. A local theater wanted to have me do an open to the public show, and this theater was pretty renowned nationally, even though it was like my local theater. And I had a couple of things I was able to put on my website that just made me look a little bit better than I was. And once I had that proof of concept, other companies were more willing to book me. So I just got a couple of, the snowball just started rolling down the hill at the exact time as I was about to bail. And I turned it down again. I bailed on the PhD again. Pursued magic.
Right, but now you are where you're at, and when I used to run radio stations in Santa Barbara and whatnot, I would always say to salespeople, I mean, sometimes every once in a while they can get it quickly, right?
Yeah.
But there are very few rainmakers. But then most of them, they'll get to just about that year mark of just trying, and then they quit just before it was about to happen. And that is entrepreneurialism, and that is what you are and what you have. So that is such a great story, and that correlates with you, Brian, being the quote unquote messaging guy. Helping smart people explain what they do for the rest of us, along with co-founding the core messaging discipline at Clarity Up Consulting, obviously, which I already mentioned. You went viral on TEDx as a talk speaker with almost 4 million views, and now completely, for the most part, from what I understand, focused on Clarity Messaging Consultant. And I would think that your background of being the magician and obviously having the genes and the intellect and whatnot, I would think it would really, doing what you did would probably is what led you to a significant extent to being able to do what you have done with Clarity Up Consulting. Because to be able to look back at those experiences, being a magician, and even if you had failed at it, at least you tried. But you didn't fail at it. You got 10, 15 years, whatever you said out of it. But so, Brian, along with being a former magician, you're obviously very, very well spoken. Why are you, according to the one and only, I have to drop her name because she's fantastic, the one and only Liz Galloway, one of the greatest marketing consultants on the planet, and especially in the United States, why does she refer to you as the messaging guy?
Well, it's funny that we actually started with magic. I don't get asked about it as much anymore. It's sufficiently in my past that I don't get asked about it as much now.
It was the first thing that caught my eye.
That's great. Listen, that's why it's still on my marketing, because my very Jewish grandmother used to say, everybody needs a shtick. And so that kind of became my thing. When I was a magician, my shtick was that I had actually trained as a stand-up comedian, and so that was my thing. But as a speaker, as a consultant, my shtick is I was a magician. And so it's actually the lessons I learned from magic, or what I've built this whole consulting career and all the message design work. It's all
exactly.
The lessons from magic.
Yeah, I would have guessed that's what you would have said. To have the audacity and the bravery and the courage, and to do that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the two core lessons that you learn as a magician are connection and clarity. So connection, the job of a magician, because I was a sleight of hand artist, I was not an illusionist. So I did close-up magic. I'd do 3-4 hours of 1,000 people mingling in cocktail hour with DJs in the background and whatever else is going on, hors d'oeuvres and people. And the job of a magician is to walk up to a group of strangers cold who already know each other. They're laughing. They've got a drink. They have a whole thing. Interrupt them.
Right.
5 minutes later, walk away having them thank you for the interruption and feeling like you're a part of their family, right? And so magicians learn how to make instant connections with perfect strangers. Mm-hmm. So that in and of itself led to a huge amount of the work that I do, both as a speaker and a consultant.
A speaker, and also that's the essence of being a rainmaker or a genius salesperson.
Yeah, I mean, that human connection is not just a nice to have in our personal lives. It is the unlock for so many things. And I've literally been saying since 2015, 2016, there's records of me saying this way before the AI craze we're in now, that in an increasingly automated world, humans are desperate for real connection. And I've been predicting forever there will be a backlash, and I'm going to keep putting my foot down and saying the companies that will survive the long term are not the ones necessarily playing the AI game right now. Not to say that they can't do well. The companies that are going to survive the long term are the ones that are going to double down on human connection, double down on humanity.
I agree with that. I think at the same time, it's I think that's absolutely correct. And at the same time, I think it's looking at AI the correct way and integrating it. Because yes, I think
100%.
And there's so many people, probably worldwide, but especially in America, that they're scared of AI. We've grown up watching Terminator, blah blah blah. But I use it aggressively. I love it, and it's an asset. It makes me more intelligent, smarter, and more apt every day. So I think it's integrating it and not looking at a company or whatever it might be and replacing people, but it's how do I use this amazing creation to make my employees, to make myself and my employees better.
Exactly. If we can use, and that's what I mean. The companies that I'm talking about, the ones jumping on the AI bandwagon, just immediately changing everything they do into an AI version of what they do, I think are in a lot of trouble.
I think that's short-sighted.
Right. It's short-sighted. AI used really well, in theory, should be for companies to use AI to remove all of the crap that actually gets in the way of them connecting with their customers and connecting with their audiences. So, like, used that way, it's like, yeah, it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. I use it
first.
I use it constantly, all day long. Yeah. I wish if I had this right when I started these magazines or everything I've done in my career,
yeah, can you imagine? Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you had been able to use it back when you were doing even, being a magician, the feedback,
Absolutely. And so it's like, on one hand, so there's that connection piece as a magician that has become so critical in sales, in networking, in relationship building, all the things.
That's probably one of the most valuable things you ever did in your life was going down the magician road.
100%. And on the other side is clarity. So you have connection, and then you have clarity. And so there's this quote that I love from one of my old heroes in magic, this guy, Jay Sankey, crazy Canadian magician out of Toronto. Sankey used to say, paradoxically, mystery requires clarity. Right? Paradoxically, mystery requires clarity. In other words, what you see a lot in amateur magicians is a very complicated trick because they're so focused on the moves and the secret. They're so excited about the secret, right? The fun thing that they learned. And so they do this trick that goes on and on. They deal 7 piles of 3 cards, and then you move the cards around, and then you give me a random number, and then you yell a color, and then there's all this stuff. And at the end, they're like, is that your card? They're like, yeah, I guess. I don't even really remember because there was so much crap going on. But the magicians, the amateurs, so proud of themselves because of how clever it was, right? In other words, what they're doing is working from the idea down. Mm-hmm. And I built my company, and the reason it's called this is we work from clarity up. What you learn as a magician is mystery requires clarity. If the audience understands what happened, not how the trick worked, but if they can tell you in a sentence, I thought of a card and he knew what it was. If they can do that, then you have a beautiful mystery because they actually know what took place, right? The silk vanished and it showed up in my pocket. Whatever. If they can explain to somebody else, or describe is a better word, if they can describe what happened to somebody else in one sentence, the magic is much more powerful. And so that's the clarity piece.
And so is this what you would, as Liz put it, is this what you would correlate into quote-unquote message design?
Yeah. And so that's what we do. So we work with experts. And when I say experts, I mean it in the traditional sense, not in the LinkedIn guru sense, not in the self-proclaimed. You can pretty much tell if someone's an expert because, well, you can tell when someone's not an expert if they refer to themselves as an expert. Real experts will not admit. If you call someone who's really an expert, they will immediately be like, no, there's so much I don't know. There's other people smarter than me. They're like, that's a real expert.
Yeah, that's like, or when you speak to people and they say, I'm a genius or I'm Mensa. It's like, no, you're not.
I'm a thought leader. Yeah. Thought leader. It's not a noun. It's a verb. You do thought leadership. You don't get to call yourself a thought leader. Anyway, I got a whole rant about that. Right. So we work with experts, so scientists, academics, researchers, people, engineers, or you might be someone who's been in your industry for so long that your experience has become expertise, right? Like you've been in an industry for a long time, so you've by default become an expert. We work with those people. Now, think about the experts that those kind of scientists, the academics, the researchers, the engineers. They have a very hard time explaining what they're working on to the rest of us, to normal people, because they're too smart.
How do you even explain it? Yeah.
Right. You talk to a marine biologist who's working on the next generation of animal telemetry by coordinating with NASA using small satellites to beam, using time of arrival technique. I know all these words because I spent the last 2 years working with marine scientists doing that. that guy, he's a genius. But when it comes to presenting to a room full of just, the public or funders or politicians or something like that, where he needs to get these people on board with what he's doing so that they can do more research and the idea can spread, he's got to figure out how to talk about it. And he doesn't remember what it's like to not know all that stuff that he knows. We call it the problem of knowledge, the curse of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
The more you know about something, the harder it is to remember what it's like to not know what you know. You just take your knowledge for granted.
And the harder it is to explain it, because also an unfortunate fact, my opinion, is I call it the 95-5 rule. And 95% of the population, you can barely explain anything. And I'm not a pessimist, but if that weren't the case, the world would be a much better place. And so you are working with the 5% for the sake of conversation.
Yes. I'm working with the people whose work is critically important, but will only get done if more people know about it, understand it, can talk about it, can support it, can fund it. And so what we're doing is we're doing message design for them. We're helping them figure out how to explain in normal language to non-experts what they do in a way that gets people excited, engaged, and want to talk about it. There's a phrase that I repeat constantly, which is, if people do not know how to talk about what you do, they will not talk about what you do.
No, the way you just said it in that previous 10 seconds, that was perfect. And so how do, when you first engage with someone, whether it's a scientist, or you said marine biologist, or an entrepreneur, a diehard business person, what are some of the first questions you ask them to engage them, to get them to start seeing how to just say the thing?
Yeah. Typically, I start with, tell me why you're here. I mean, that really is the first question. It's you managed to get on a meeting with me. What I do is super niche. I mean, this is so specific, right? Somehow you got to me. So what are you doing here? You're busy. And believe it or not, that question will usually get us pretty far. Because what that question does is it forces people to justify the time they're taking out of their day to meet with someone like me. And so what they're going to do is start talking about why what they work on matters. Because the only purpose of talking to someone like me is so that they can explain it to other people better. And so the main first question I ask them is like, so what about that? So you do this. It's really impressive. You're really smart. It sounds super cool. So what? So what if we save the whales? What if we don't? Right? What if we don't? And I want to find out what's at stake. I want to find out what brought them to care about this and what's at stake if they don't get to do their work.
But at the core of it, regardless of how amazing it is, at the core of it, and that's you very intelligently came up with what you're doing, is they don't know how to say it, right?
Right. And so I want them to at least immediately identify the stakes, and I want them to identify near-term stakes. So stakes, we will often draw a four-quadrant. There's short-term and long-term, and then there's like light and heavy. There are lots of ways to talk about stakes. There's positive and negative. There's short-term, long-term.
Yeah.
So short-term negative stakes, we call that urgency. What's likely to go terribly wrong soon if we don't fix this problem that you're addressing? And then you have positive long-term stakes, which I call utopia. What's likely to go very well in the long run if we do fix this problem? And what we're looking to do in our messaging is to pair the short-term, the urgency, against the utopia. Because what most people do by instinct is hit a different quadrant. They talk about short-term positive. You ask people what's at stake, and they'll go, oh, well, like, if we get this right, then, pretty soon these good things will happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, people aren't motivated to have a slightly good thing happen. They're much more motivated to have a terrible thing not happen.
Have you ever heard of you just reminded me of something. One of my favorite clients and friends, you've probably heard of this. I believe it originally came from Marcus Aurelius. Have you heard of the OODA loop theory?
Not by that term. Go, hit me.
So what it is, and then I think the Navy uses it and whatnot, and that's where Rob originally got it, is what Aurelius used to do. It's to me, it reminds me of what you're saying. Is so most people go into any plan, anything with, okay, I'm going to take all these steps to hopefully get there, right? Yet most people won't. They'll end up coming up with excuses not to even get through those steps. What Aurelius did is, I mean, for him, it was, I'm going to go conquer this, whatever it is, and then, but I'm putting myself at the end game.
Yeah.
So I'm there. I'm already there. I'm mentally there because the mind's the most powerful component. You know that of everything that we do as entrepreneurs, successful business people, etc. It's putting yourself mentally at the end game. And then you just backtrack. It's like, I'm already there. I'm going to accomplish this. And so it's like you said, taking the utopia. I mean, to me, it sounds like that's almost like what you were saying.
Yes. So this is great. So we have a principle. We call it the AFA principle. It's audience first always. So we start with the audience. Who are you communicating with? Who are the intended recipients of this communication? Okay. So we start with them. We're starting at the end, essentially. We're starting with the people it's intended for. And the question we do, our big shift, their whole business can almost be boiled down to this shift. Most people spend most of their time communicating by asking, what do I want to say? They go, what do I want to say?
Yeah.
Even most communication training trains people to do that.
Yeah.
Where we start is the question, what do they need to hear?
Right.
What does the audience need to hear?
Right.
And
You
so
go to
the
the end.
audience
You go to
first
the end. Here's what the audience wants to hear. Now let's backtrack it. Yeah.
Right. They need to hear this. It's like, okay. So then, in order for them to hear that, in order for them to take the action you're hoping they'll take, what needs to be true? What beliefs do they need to hold? What fears need to be assuaged? What needs to be at stake and made explicit?
Exactly.
You know, what existing solutions do they think work but don't actually work or don't work as well as they should? Can you prove that? There's all these steps that we take and we move backwards.
It's looking at a bigger picture first instead of getting mired and lost in the steps along the way. Because you will get lost.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
you literally are practicing what it's called. You can Google it when we're done. It's the OODA loop theory. OODLA. That's what you're doing, and it's genius that you're. It's genius that you're doing it, and it's like go to the end. I wish I had known about it 10 years ago when I first started these magazines, because I would have looked at the whole game differently. I would have, instead of at first it was just one magazine. But if I had initially said, just do all 14 at once, I would have put myself at the end, but I didn't have that concept yet in my head.
Yeah, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell who said this once. He was asked, he said, so many aspiring writers ask, how do I begin? How do I write the intro? How do I start writing the book? He goes, the question is, how does it end?
Same thing.
If you write the ending, it's not that hard to write the book, because then the book just has to get you there. You just start working, go, okay, well, to get to that end, I would need to be here. Well, to get there, I would need to be here. Well, to get there, I would need to be here.
That is exactly it. And that's Marcus Aurelius was a great thinker, and that's what he realized. Is just go to the end and then fill the gaps in on the way. But, I mean, so many people, don't you have, whether it's you're working with, Brian, whether you're working with entrepreneurs or whoever it might be, or even if it's a friend who says, I'm going to move to Aspen, Colorado someday. Instead of just go do it. They'll never even get to it because there are all these little, missteps that come along the way.
No, totally. And it's true across the board, like I said, we traditionally work with, the more traditional experts, but I'm working with the founder of a unicorn tech company right now, a company worth $1 billion, and this guy's a genius, obviously. But when he talks, he just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. And you're just like, man, your tech must be good because the way you explain it.
Right. No, you're literally getting lost in your own mind.
And he's charismatic and he's engaging and he's all those things, but it was like, why was I brought in? I was brought in to nail the messaging so that it can be consistent across, not just when he speaks, but across all channels, so that his team also knows how to repeat the messaging, so that his other executives, his comms director, so that when he's not in the room, other people on his team can also stick to the message and make it consistent, right? It's not just one person in a company.
This has been one of the greatest conversations I've ever had. So thank you very much, Brian. And I've now taken 30 minutes of your time, and I don't have the right to eat any more up. I would love to speak.
Oh, please.
I'd love to speak. I promised Liz only 30 minutes. She said you're busy. But I would love to do it again. And this is so valuable for so many of our listeners and great entrepreneurs and whatnot in general. And now I completely understand. And again, you're very, very well spoken. And it's what Clarity Up is. It's just say the thing, but go to the end first and then come back. And and I think that's such a very intelligent, smart name for a company. It's just Clarity Up. Just clear the clutter out of your head and get to it. And so many people lose so many opportunities and on every level, from romance to business to personal and whatnot, because of what's spinning between their ears.
Yeah, and it's because it's something that's been true for a long time, but it's never been more true than it is today.
Absolutely.
Right? The best ideas don't win. The clearest ideas win. Every entrepreneur who's listening to this has had an idea, has had a product or a service or a business that is better than their competitors, and they have watched their competitors blast past them, knowing that their product or competing service or whatever it is not as good as theirs. It's like, why? Because their message was clear.
If their message is clear, and because they just jumped off the cliff and they did it. They went for it. You're sitting here mired in it, and all the time you're spending mired in it, by the time you actually get through all your muddled steps, there's already something new.
Yeah, you don't have the time to. There's no time to wait. The world moves too fast.
No, there's no time left. And also that old school philosophy too is once you just say the thing, even in your mind, say a great idea, and you let it out, it's out in the universe, and someone else is going to pick up on it.
Yes, and we can kind of cap it off with this, because you just led me to one of my favorite things to talk about, which is there are so many people that, like you said, they're waiting, and it's not because they're lazy. It's because they're trying to figure it out fully before they let it out of their mouth, before they put it on the page. And what happens is you don't think yourself into becoming a better writer or better communicator. You write or communicate yourself into being a better thinker. Right?
Very well said.
To become a better thinker.
Very well said. Like, that's exactly right.
Put your ideas in the world. Smash them into other ideas.
That's exactly right. And so many people, again, whether it's moving to a new town or creating what could be a multi-billion-dollar company, the greatest obstacle often is what's right between our ears. Overthinking it and not just pushing it. If you push it, you just got to keep pushing yourself and going for it. And so, my dear friend, I really hope we get to speak again. And you intrigue me. You're incredibly well spoken, and I love what you're doing. I love it. Just say the thing. That's exactly right. Just say it. It's almost just say it and do it. But by saying it, then you do it. And that's what you help people do, right? Brian Miller of Clarity Up. Just say the thing. ClarityUpConsulting.com. Everything can be said clearly, and it must. And if you have the fortunate opportunity and gift to connect with Brian Miller and learn how he and Clarity Up teach smart people how to explain their big ideas to the rest of us, it will be one of the greatest moments of your life. Brian, thank you so much for the time, and I can't wait until we hopefully get to speak again. Fantastic shirt, by the way, and also,
thanks so much for having me.
And also, the fact that you were a magician, that's rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
Take it easy, brother.